Hey guys, welcome back to another InSTEM episode. So in this video today, we are shaking things up again with a new guest who brings with us, a fresh perspective into the world of graduate careers. His name is Peter. He is the founder of the Graduate Guide, and he's on a mission to equip graduates with the tools and resources they need to navigate the often complex and confusing post-university sort of path. Welcome on board, Peter. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. So you're actually making a bit of InSTEM history today. So you're the first non-STEM guest that we've had on our platform. How does that make you feel to be breaking an InSTEM record?
Well, it's a bit nerve-wracking, I guess. It's some big shoes to fill. But again, I'm very happy to have this conversation. It's something, even if it's not myself, I'm very passionate about the cause.
Awesome. So Peter himself has interviewed some of the top minds in business and industry. So get ready to glean many insights from our conversation. So the tradition with InSTEM podcast is we start with an icebreaker question just to ease you into the conversation. Yeah. And as I've mentioned, you've interviewed some of the most amazing and inspiring people from the world of business and entrepreneurship and so on. Who is the most inspiring guests you've interviewed, and why? And what's the reason for you selecting them as your answer?
Yeah, I suppose there's a few ways you could take this answer in, just the person and what they've achieved and how sort of relatable it is to me and my ambitions. But I think probably what's more important to me is I've always had this weird relationship with what the Graduate Guide has been to me. Starting it in my final year at university as this passion project and never having done a podcast, didn't know how I was going to get my guests, who they'd be, just on this like curiosity pursuit to try and speak to people that could give me some answers about careers. And for the longest time, like it was great. I was interviewing sort of these young successful people, and it didn't really give me that clarity on who I could become in a career sense, or which industry I belonged in. And I think there was a point, so 20 episodes in, Sam Horby, founder of Old Sam, he is by no means like the most like recognized guest or, traditionally famous, but he really made me fall in love with his idea of entrepreneurship, and really focusing on the journey part of it and not just the end result, because I'd kind of had entrepreneurship sold to me at university in this way that it was like you had to sacrifice everything and you had to ruin your life for it, and it just seemed like a very inaccessible thing to me at the time. And he said, yeah, of course you've got to make sacrifices to do anything great. You kind of have to, but he made me realize that having this sort of delusional level of optimism and there's some ambition and this like real passion and desire to do things with a jump in your step and really take on to entrepreneurship in a more positive outlook. I think for me that was the most formative guest that I've had on because of the timing of it.
Awesome. Yeah. So I came across you, actually, one of the things that stood out the most to me was the mission statement for the Graduate Guide, which is building the guide that we never had at university, or something along those lines. I that really jumped out at me, because as someone who also didn't have a great start to the world of industry, I often pondered on the fact that university just didn't equip me enough. I'm not trying to cast blame on university, but the experience at university, I just on its own, I didn't find it absolutely adequate to prepare, graduates for the world of, work and 9 to 5 and, all the other possibilities following university. So I wondered, and I wanted you to share with, our guests, like what drove you to starting something like that? Was it a personal story, experience, or maybe the story of someone from your network that you encountered that really prompted you to start something that would help, graduates navigate this really daunting part of one's, life?
Well, I think the thing that I realised, and granted, when I started university, it was COVID, and it was living in a different period of university, but I was always just told at school, if you get into a good university, you'll be fine. That was like the general conversations around careers. There wasn't much more to it. Like I had no awareness of what I wanted to do. So I picked a history degree that kept as many doors open as possible. And I was seeing like, this university that, is heralded as supposedly 8th best university in the world. Obviously these are just vanity metrics, and whether they actually mean that or not is another debate entirely. But, everyone around me was suffering with the same problem of just actually not knowing what they want to do. Even, the same people, they could be incredibly motivated and applying to all these consulting summer internships and law and banking, but they ultimately just didn't actually know what they wanted to do. And I find it very hard to work without passion. Like I just do. I'm not one of these brains or people that can just automate their productivity. Like I've got to be driven by something. And I lived a lot of my university days with a lot of ambition, but I didn't know where to apply that ambition, which I found a pretty manic depressive feeling. And it was kind of a back against the wall moment. Actually at a pub, I saw my old head boy at school who had gone on to do great things, and I was like, I need to start surrounding myself with more people like him. And I didn't have the name, I didn't have the logo, it didn't exist as a podcast, but I invited him on something, in one spur of like youthful naivety and courageousness that I would never normally do. And from that moment, I kind of realized, okay, I don't know what this is going to be. I don't know where this could go. And I don't have any expectations, more importantly, because I'd put quite a lot of expectation on some things in my career happening. And I've kind of learned that's probably not the best thing to always do. It's much more, I think, sustainable to desire a certain outcome and do everything within your means to do that, to get there, but not to like put all your eggs into that one basket. So anyway, the mission at the beginning was pretty selfish in some ways, to help me find my own career. But I did know that anyone who'd be listening along would be, hopefully taking on that journey with me. And, bit by bit, episode by episode, like I really didn't start it with that intention of being one of these big, massive viral podcasts that a lot of people aim for. I wanted to like do it for self-improvement, to find a career I found fulfilling, and, speak to just people that I didn't normally get to surround myself with on a day-to-day basis. And the whole journey to what my relationship's been with it, what it could be, where it could go. Ultimately, I've landed in this place now where, once you're through a certain door, and I can't tell you at what point in time it happens or how it happens, you just suddenly believe like anything is possible. Like it's a really weird feeling, and like when you're told that happens when you're younger, you're like, oh yeah, whatever, it's not going to happen to me. But one day someone will force you through it, or you'll force yourself. And I really think that there's so many great people that really want change in their industry or in the way careers is done, and a lot of people resonate with this mission and are really willing to help and support it. And just that support that I've been able to galvanize, not on my ability as a founder, not any like other skills that I possess, but just the actual support for this mission and cause. I have genuine faith that we can create this one-stop shop guide for graduates in every different industry where they can find out, do I actually want to work in that? So increase that transparency between industries. And then when you actually find out if you want to work in that industry, how do you actually go ahead and do that and implement the things that need to be done to get into that industry? So, that's the mission right now. That's the mission I'm on. So it's changed from the beginning.
Wow, it's a fantastic mission. And as you know, you have a little bit of an idea of what we do at InSTEM. There's so much that resonates with, the InSTEM mission. One of I think there's a hidden lesson that I've learned from your answer. And that is, you had an idea, you had a desire to actually, change, firstly yourself. And you committed to it, and then it's kind of proliferated and evolved into something bigger than you. And I think it's a great lesson for people to take away, because often when we have ideas, we often think of, this grand, ways of or manifestations of it. But actually, once you take that first step and then you take the next step, then it becomes a bit more crystallized and evolves and snowballs. And I think that's really important, because perfectionism or trying to get to that sort of perfect state before you actually do anything can be such a massive deterrent as well. Would you say that it helped not actually having such a, bring like a grand idea as to what you wanted this to be, just committing to that initial thought. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a really nice articulation of what I said there. And I think I went through accelerators and university sort of entrepreneurial ventures, and they all, for whatever reason, even if they could have been a great idea, they were a great idea, I'll never know, but they all got lost in this process of ideation and validation. And will VCs like it? Will people want to buy it? And sometimes you just need to start to then actually iterate on something that already exists in this world and people can give genuine feedback on. And I mean, there are loads of cliches that will get thrown around in the world of VC, but the reason why they say that it's who the founder is that's important and not the idea is that, it's true. Ideas are not a valuable asset, really. Everyone has them, and it's how you pivot and adapt, and you actually make a product for the people that you're trying to, and how you engage with them. So I think going on this journey and doing a lot of things like almost incognito, it's very easy to look at my LinkedIn now and see this following that I've built and the guests I'm interviewing, and think like, oh, okay, he's just skipped some steps to get there. But for the longest time, I really had no desire to build this personal brand. I wanted to actually work out who I was before I started putting out any thoughts of my own. And even when I put out thoughts of my own, I'm still kind of I'm still this naive young student that doesn't know anything. Please listen to the people that I'm platforming and not me. One day I probably will become adequately knowledgeable in a certain field that I can give back genuine value. But for now, I think as a 23-year-old, learning my trade, I think the best thing I can do is just really strive to just put the best people on a pedestal and give the best people the platform to give back to graduates.
So changing gears a bit into, obviously, one of the key ways in which you deliver value to your community, to the graduate guide communities, by bringing on people like we do on Instagram to share their stories. And you've interviewed, like I said earlier in the interview, lots of very successful people and interesting people and people with valuable skills and experiences. From their stories, what would you say you've identified as the biggest misconceptions of success? And also, if you could also share your insights on what you think the biggest mistakes are that graduates make in their careers.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, we all make a lot of mistakes. And I think actually, somewhat ironically, allowing yourself to make those mistakes and your actual ability to identify those mistakes and work on them is a trait in a lot of successful people. Being scared of failure is inherently a thing that will cap where you can go, because I mean, if you look at my old episodes on Spotify, I make sure that I keep them all on there, because ultimately that's part of the journey, it's part of the process. But I was not the interviewer that I am now. The production quality was horrible, loads of things that I look back and it makes myself cringe. But that ability to be critical, not to the point of it being overwhelming, but critical to the point of, okay, well, I need to understand why I'm doing this to myself. If you have your why locked down, there's a good chance that you could achieve success with what you're doing. Yeah. It doesn't put a timeline on when it can happen, but I always have my why locked down for doing this, and it's changed along the way. And I've always tried to make it as tangible as possible at that moment in time. And I think a lot of people that I've interviewed have done the same. It's how can I deliver on that why within the next few months, instead of this delusion of grandeur that you can develop when, which can be inflated by a variety of things. I think, sometimes, VCs do inflate, people's ideas of how entrepreneurship should be. And, you do see these amazing people that can bootstrap something and build it just out of pure grit, endurance, and an ability to believe in themselves. So I guess that probably answers the first part of the question a little bit more. Success I have found to be enduring, keeping hold of ambition, and being willing to make those mistakes and knowing why you're doing it. if I could summarize it. And then going on to graduates and students, I think like in the UK education system, quite often rabbit holing into things is almost looked down upon. It doesn't help towards, you know, this traditional way of assessing someone's intelligence. Like, if you rabbit hole, ultimately, if it's not the textbook, you're not going to be assessed on it. So there's no inherent value in doing it. However, with your career, you have to rabbit hole. I think you have to get curious. You have to dig deeper into weird little places, almost like you would on YouTube or anything. Just like keep going down these weird routes, and you end up at something that you never expected at the beginning. Yeah. And that could just be your dream thing that like changes your life. And it's happened to me many times where, you know, I've just found myself in a point where I'm like, why am I even thinking this idea could be possible, or thinking that I could operate in this space? But it only takes a few people to give you a chance to activate those things into life. And yeah, I think the more you can look at these people that you like maybe put on a pedestal and you think it's not possible to have the success, and really dig deep into how they went from A to B to C, instead of just saying that's just never going to be me, like the more we could actually like strive for innovation and positive change in this world and with your career.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack from your answers, and like lots, you know, really deeply resonated with me. Just kind of going back to the first part of the question, which is, what are the biggest misconceptions about success? I love the fact that you said it's, you know, you will inherently make mistakes, right? We're human beings, right? And it's very much, this journey is all about learning, and it's about, you know, kind of evolving and reinventing yourself per time. It reminded me of the videos that because obviously this is a relatively new look for the InSTEM audience. I used to record on Zoom as well, but actually that's part of the journey. And obviously the videos then aren't as sleek as these videos now, but actually it's part of the journey, forms part of the InSTEM story. And it's, you know, it's great to look back and say, this is where I've come from. Just like you can look back and say, oh, the way in which I, you know, interact with my guests now is, you know, different to how I used to do it. So I think it's great to have that mindset. And once you have that mindset, then you're not afraid of failure, and you're not held back from going and, you know, exploring new things. You mentioned a point about, you know, ultimately people will, you know, they'll validate your idea, they'll believe in you. But have you gone through any experiences where they didn't, though? Because I guess maybe, you know, you can't always guarantee that people will be receptive to an idea or an initiative that you want to start. And like, have you gone through a personal experience where maybe something that you wanted to do wasn't, you know, well received by someone that you really valued as well? Oh, yeah. And how did you turn that around?
Yeah, I mean, of course. Like, I think, and also they are right to do so. Like, everyone has their own right to say whatever they think about your project or what you're working on. And if every idea came to life, like, that would just be that it wouldn't make any sense. Like, ideas are meant to be refined, people are meant to be refined by taking on this kind of feedback. So I think, you know, it doesn't have to be like a monumental business idea that you've put your whole year into and then one person just crushes it down. It could be like on a very day-to-day micro basis that people, you know, reel in your ideas. But I think you have to reframe or try and understand why someone's saying something, instead of just, you know, thinking, okay, well, this will never be brought to life in any way, shape or form. Like, I probably let, for a long period of my life, people control what I thought I could do in my career, which is a sad thought. You know, ultimately, I think I probably could have started the Graduate Guide 5 years before I did, and it wouldn't have made a difference. I still would have had the same person, like the same person was still sat within me. Yeah. And I didn't actually, like, all I had was a UCL history degree that I was studying at the time to my name. So I think the ability to be able to embrace that you are so receptive to hear this feedback, it kind of puts you in that, it kind of changes the power dynamic. Yeah. If you make yourself, like, I know you're going to say something and I'm already going to be like acting on it. Like, I'm already thinking about the next thing. I've already, like, I think it's important to just think that ideas are, they're important, they're essential to build anything, but you cannot like hold on to them dearly, because that's just like, there's no happiness in that for a start. Like there's no sustainability in that. People are always going to have their comments. So I think you just need to continually, work out what kind of founder you want to be, what kind of person you want to be, what kind of career you want to work in. All these kind of questions are way more important than ideas or things that you want to get feedback on. So focus on that before you even like worry about someone shutting you down or an idea being shut down.
No, that is such an interesting perspective. I really like that. I agree with that. I think it's important to start with you first. And you've, I can imagine, I mean, you said earlier that you're on, is it episode 80 of your podcast?
So
or thereabout?
we've recorded about 150.
Oh gosh. Oh wow, sorry, I've
Yeah, but like externally, I have basically been trying to work out what my episode 100 is going to be, which, you know, for some reason I'm overthinking that. I think it's quite a big deal. But yeah, the reason why we've recorded so many in advance is of this bigger mission to actually like have industry specialists across all these different industries and actually make it into this website or usable thing where it's not just this podcast that sits there. It's an actual, like every single episode I've ever done gets a new lease of life. Because I think often, you know, if you just go on a Spotify, you're not going to scroll back down to the bottom. But I think some of the most value hides there. So I'm going to like bit by bit, we're working on this website and bringing this actual graduate guide to life.
That would be amazing.
It's going to take some work, and we are on our way. But in the meantime, we are still around the 90 episode mark released, I think.
Awesome. Oh no, that sounds really exciting. I genuinely, also believe in, trying to extract from those interviews like tangible, what we try to do here is capture like specific resources that have been called out, for example, and having it on the website so people can click on, and it goes beyond just being inspired. Like there's also something that you can do with that inspiration. But no, a huge number of guests that you've interacted with.
That was the main point.
No, that's fine. I hadn't actually even asked the full question, but you already mentioned earlier that, Sam's story inspired you at the stage in life that you were at when you had him on as a guest. Are there any other immensely impactful stories? And I don't want to dump, I'm sure all of your guests have had incredible things to share, but what are some examples of stories that have really stayed with you and kind of come to the forefront of your mind as I ask this question?
I think I really like looking at the people behind the scenes that cause something to be incredibly successful. So it was quite interesting. Last week, I released the CEO of Flight Story, so Stephen Bollock's co-founder. And I also released the head of research for Flight Studio, the whole of Flight Studio. So initially, Dario, the CEO. And I just found it really, really fascinating to look at, because at the end of every single episode, I ask, what is your definition of success, and how has it changed from when you started your career to where you are now? It's really interesting to see how someone can have equal amount of impact and value and fulfillment in their career without the fancy titles that a lot of people desire. So Ross Field, the head of research at Flight Story, he had this crazy whirlwind journey with his career, definitely not traditional, worked a lot of jobs he didn't feel passionate about, felt very out of place in the career world, but has ultimately ended up at 28 in this absolute dream role, doing his allocation of his skills into his career path, his ability to let himself be curious and rabbit hole and ultimately get the best kind of answers out of some of the most interesting people in the world through Dario, the CEO. I think what was really inspiring about that particular episode was exactly that. You don't need to have this massive grand title next to you, or this massive, I don't know, your influence on this world with your career. It can be you're in your own way. It doesn't have to be in the way that it gets shown to you a lot online. It's kind of what I'm trying to say. I'm not sure if I've said it correctly.
Oh no, again, I've used the word resonate a lot in this interview, but I think we live in an era where there's so much, admiration for grandiosity and everything. Do you know what I mean? Like everything has to be, if it's not grand, if it's not popular, it's not impactful, but it's actually not that really. I think, as you've said, it's impact. It's about being able to utilize your impact in a way that is tangible. And the only people doing that aren't the founders, aren't the CEOs, the people playing amazing roles behind the scenes. Popularity or, the fanciness of a title should not be conflated with impact, I think is the key message from that answer. Yeah, I think and it's something in the conversation that I had in my previous interview with Titi and Zainab, who are IET award winners, so the Young Woman Engineer of the Year and the WES Prize winner. We talked about this and we said, if it's one person that you are making a difference to, actually a long-term view could be that person then becomes a family and that family becomes a lineage. But often people put off this saying, oh, it's just the one person, like I'm not making a difference. Actually, you are. Who's to say that making a difference only counts when it's hundreds or thousands of people? You can make your impact in your own little way. So totally.
I mean, and ultimately, like I even though I am on this pursuit of entrepreneurship and do have founder and CEO next to my name, I'm very aware that like ultimately there is no point in doing any of this if I'm not happy. Like I'm just like inherently aware of that, and maybe to the detriment of getting things done like quicker than other people. But if you think what you're doing is different and innovative and you're doing it in your own way, like I really don't think there should be this this idea of if I don't do it now, someone else will. Yeah. Because that's just comes down to believing in what you're doing. And luckily, I do feel like, I'm very happy as long as I'm just doing exactly what I think I should be doing that day. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And it removes that element of competition and trying to do what other people are trying to do, or even having to answer to other people. It means that you are staying truly authentic to your own purpose, if I could describe it that way.
And I'll still get like the exact same sort of jealousy as everyone else. But my main point is that is my anchor. Like that's what I come back to whenever I get led astray and like start comparing myself too much. Like, I'm not doing a traditional job compared to my other UCL graduate peers, not on the same wage as them, all these kind of things. I could very easily think that I'm not doing as well as them, but you have to anchor everything you're doing in happiness, I think. I think you just have to.
Yeah, no, it's a very refreshing perspective, and I truly believe in that as well. You mentioned, the CEO of Flight Story and the head of research, and I'm just super impressed by the caliber of guests that you've had, and I'm hoping that you'll have gotten some insights from them in what they are potentially looking for in people to work with. So for the graduates, especially for our STEM audience, what would you say are the, most in-demand skills and qualities that, employers are looking for?
I think it's a lot easier to be, if you are like very intelligent and you're just very good at maths, or for example, it's very easy to be that, right? Because that's just you. That's like your natural intellect. Yeah. I think employers, they always look for someone who's like worked to better themselves to become a different, like, even if you are really impressive, they always look at how you've tried to make yourself more impressive, because that's ultimately what they want you to do within your company. And like there really, really is no obvious way to do that. Like, and I mean, the job market right now it's really, really tough. Yeah. And it's not by accident that I've tried to grow a career that doesn't involve me having to do that, because I just don't think it at all rewards people for who they are or how good they are. But ultimately, if you're being very brutally honest about how you can get to where you're trying to go to and into the right job, you have to say, okay, well, there are people in my position that have done what I want to do. So it's possible. Yeah. The possibility there should be inspiration alone. But you can't just stop, like, again, this is all about a mindset and reframing how you look at something. these people that have got into that dream job that you're in, you shouldn't hate them for having done it. They've clearly done something that's separated them.
Yeah.
So really study for that very specific role, because given every role is going to require different skills, why that person who's in the place that you want to be got there. And if you can find any weird route to getting to have a conversation with them, even better. Reach out to their PA. Reach out to someone who worked at their previous company who might like you can get as creative as you want with it. You need to actually really think. I'm not saying where you're at right now is bad, but I had to be really self-critical and honest with where I was. Like, I was in my final year at university, and if I was truthfully honest, I'd done other stuff that I could put on my CV, but I was just a history student, I could not compete for these spring weeks, summer internships, even if I wanted to, right? Like, I was long gone. Like, so I had to be like, okay, what do I have? Like, what do I have? And I thought I probably have, I do think I ask different questions to do. Like, I have curiosity. I've got that. I've probably got some level of confidence because I can go meet people at a club or a pub and have a conversation. Does that transfer at all into a career? No. Do I know how I could apply it right now? No. But like, it's finding those things and what you do that other people enjoy about you as well, even if it's very simply just with your friends, and trying to work out ways you can apply that in a stage by stage basis in your career, I think is a better way of answering what skills can you look for, because what does that really mean? Like, I honestly don't know either.
Fair enough. No, I think, it was a bit of you could have answered it more aptly. I think that's, again, there's such a strong emanating theme from your answers on mindset and knowing who you are and leveraging that to do whatever it is you want to do. And I genuinely believe, I've heard some amazing stories of perhaps the best or the most intelligent candidate not getting a role, but the managers and the leaders that were interviewing for that role going for someone that they genuinely felt, oh, this person has a potential. I can see the growth, in their story, and therefore I'll take a chance on them. So I loved how you've approached that answer, actually.
Like, I'm well aware that this conversation right now, it's going to be like a really cool timestamp to look back on my life. Like, this is my thoughts at this period in time. Oh, and I'll probably go like, oh, how did they ever think that? How did you not know this? But I think as long as you're just saying exactly what you think at your current moment in life, like, you're not meant to be doing anything more than that. Like, it's the pursuit of knowledge and getting better that is going to change those opinions and how you portray yourself. So that's, I think, it's exciting to be able to watch this back, for example, in 5 years.
Yeah. Oh no, that's really interesting. For the InSTEM community, what are some of the things that the Graduate Guide are doing that they can get involved with to get a lot more of this exposure and the networks and the connections as well to materialize, their desires and those fruitful career paths that they want to embark upon?
Well, it's interesting that you said, like, there is loads of information out there. Objectively, that so many different platforms are oversaturated with loads of sort of gurus and experts saying X, Y, Z. But we, as the Graduate Guide, we're trying to put ourselves in as many different shoes as possible and have as many different touch points with people along their career journey, whether that's 15, whether that's 30, like, that whole way we're trying to make something that could appeal to you. And, whether we've done it yet or not is a different question, but we are working on that. That is, our intent. So, for example, I think that football is pretty accessible. A lot of people like football. I've got a professional network that I do not have any desire to keep to my own. I really want to share it with everyone. And I think last month was a really good trial where we rented out a football pitch in North London. We got founders, CEOs, professionals from my professional network, and just got as many students as possible to come along and meet them with a beer in hand, with a barbecue, playing a game of football. Really trying to destigmatize what networking looks like, make it way less corporate. It's really not a lot of what we do is not about trying to be the most value-driven platform. They already exist. You can go do an MBA. You can go do all these things. If you really want to dig deep, we're trying to give you that enough value and enough inspiration to make you think about where you are in your career and what you could do with it. And that's by partnering and facilitating, platforming these people that can deliver the value. So we are working on making ourselves more accessible. Both, like, we need a website. That'd be a good start.
But currently, how can people get involved in?
Like,
where can people find you?
If you follow me on LinkedIn,
okay. We'll drop the details.
that would be great. But that really is the place to find out everything that I'm doing. Everything goes on there
in real time as well. Yeah.
I also am, like, with the right questioning and intent, like, I really am receptive to helping anyone who wants to message and reach out. Like, it's a big part of how I got to where I am, is people taking opportunity on me. So I think I have a responsibility to give back in that sense. So find me online on LinkedIn, meet me in person, or drop me a message.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. And I'm sure a lot will be taken up that offer. What the Graduate Guide is doing currently sounds exciting, and I'm excited for what's to come, especially with the website launching and more events as well. And I just think this has been a brilliant interview. I think for me, there's been a very strong, consistent theme about mindsets. Actually, I don't want to say it took me by surprise, but it's been very interesting how the angles in which you've come in with your answers. And I think that's been really incredibly refreshing for me. It's, there's such a need and an urgency to have the right mindset. I think that's really what changes things, and I really appreciate you for sharing, that and, the stories and examples that you've shared as well. It's been amazing having you on board. Hopefully this won't be the last collaboration. Thank you all
Absolutely.
for staying by, and make sure you drop your comments and your reflections in the comments, and hit the like and subscription button as well. Until the next video. See ya. Bye.